So the claim that I'm refuting is that year-round schooling serves as the most advantageous schedule to the academic world. The first claim that my opponent makes is that year-round classes combat the summer slide. Disadvantaged students lose reading skills over the summer that is avoided with year-round schooling. He claims a study that shows disadvantaged students lose about 27% more in learning gains than peers. The study was made in 2012. My response to that is, if it isn't broken, don't fix it. There is a lack of research towards the general disadvantaged students. And another study also made in 2012 from research of the University of Minnesota found that 42 studies showed no positive impact from year-round school, while 27 studies showed a positive impact. Now, although the impact was positive, the authors did caution that most research on the topic didn't control for other relevant factors. Since research is mixed to as whether or not year-round schooling actually helps students, the logistical barriers mean it's not worth a change, according to this line of thinking. The second claim that my opponent makes is that making more teaching jobs year-round will benefit teachers. Again, the backing here is not strong enough to support it. In his speech, he said a statistic which said that the percentage of teachers having a second job had increased from 11% to 20%. The reason for that being based on the school's calendar seemed to be assumed. There wasn't enough information backing that claim, and that the reason for the percentage increase was due to the teachers' wages based solely on traditional calendars. In addition to, even if this was strongly supported, the majority being the other 80% of teachers are getting by somehow, so this claim doesn't have a strong enough stance. It was just kind of a fact that seemed to fit nicely into the argument. The third claim that my opponent made was that shorter, more frequent breaks are more beneficial to everyone. He reasons for this that it says that it helps families to plan vacations outside of the summer travel bubble. But why should we change the school's calendars to help families plan vacations? Although ticket prices may be lower, it sounds more like it could be of a personal issue rather than a detrimental one. It isn't really that much of a significance. Besides that, what they seem to ignore is that with year-round schooling with its shorter and more frequent breaks can actually interfere with job opportunities, as well as non-school related sports and activities like vacations. According to Ryan Hunt, a team member that created the site Career Builder, graduates who previously held internships during the breaks are more likely to have a full-time position than those who have not. A 32 versus 20% study done in 2013. Students who want to attend college classes in the summer are also prevented from doing so if a year-round schedule is in place. These opportunities are diminished for teachers as well, who might otherwise use the summer break to work towards a higher degree, participate in professional development courses, or have summer jobs of their own. In conclusion, my opponent doesn't really have a strong enough backing to support his claims, and we're fine with using the system that we're using now.
All right, well, you labeled the advocate's main proposition pretty clearly. There's no real preview of what the secondary issues are going to be. You start directly in on the first point. So that's okay, but I think it might be helpful if we had some idea of the direction that we were headed. On the first point, I think that you kind of set up a standard look. If it's not broken, don't fix it. And this is kind of a presumption issue that you're suggesting, that the burden of proof is on the advocate to show that there would be a substantial difference or a great benefit that we would get if we were doing something differently. And your argument comes down to the notion that there isn't really a substantial difference between these things. And you've got a study of a couple of or I should say, reference to a couple of studies that suggest that there is inconsistency in what the results are. Some studies found positive benefit, some studies found no benefit whatsoever, and your argument, I think that you did a good job as you're transitioning to the next point, is to say, look, unless it's particularly convincing, there's no reason that we should change from what we know is working. I thought that that was a pretty straightforward way of summarizing the argument on that particular point. On the second point, I think that you have a reasonable press here that suggests that teachers, there could be all kinds of explanations as to why teachers might be taking other jobs. The change in the percentage of teachers who get jobs doesn't seem all that significant. And I like that point. Look, 80% seem to be getting by on what they're doing now. One of the things that you also might point out is, this got left out. I think it would be a good piece of information. What is the average salary of teachers? They may be taking the extra jobs for all kinds of reasons that have nothing to do with the fact that they are underpaid. The notion that they are underpaid seems to be a presupposition that needs some proof on it. All right, on the third point, I think that you basically attempted to diminish this, saying this is a personal issue, this is one of those things that really shouldn't be relevant to the basis of our making a decision, and that there's a nice counterclaim in there on internships. I'm not exactly sure why the internships would be limited. I think you need to explain a little bit more why the internships would be limited. Also, if people are working year-round, the notion that the teachers, for instance, might have difficulty at obtaining higher degrees or doing some kind of training, professional development. I think those are good arguments. They're a little generic in nature, but I think some of the arguments that the advocate presented were a little generic in nature too. All right.